Coming to paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in digital format at Amazon.com, Google Play, Draft the Digital, and other digital booksellers, or pick up your paperback copy on May 24th. Before I get into my review of Lady Death vs. Zombie Tramp, I wanted to let everybody know that the last book of the SJS Direct 2024 catalog will be available this Friday on sale. And you can get the last book of the SJS Direct 2024 catalog, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons, this Friday in paperback and Kindle format, and you can also find it at other online booksellers such as Draft the Digital, Google Play, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And Esteem Horror in the Hamptons is the last book, again, of the 2024 catalog that featured the titles Isis, Dark Incubus, which is now available in paperback and Kindle format, and the first book of the catalog started in March with John Haynes' Illuminati. So all three of these books are now available in paperback and Kindle format. And on this Friday, you can get Esteem Horror in the Hamptons and get all of the books of the SJS Direct 2024 catalog on Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Now, I just got Lady Death vs. Zombie Tramp last week, and I was looking forward to picking this book up and enjoying it. Unfortunately, as I was reading this book, it really just didn't click to me, and since it didn't really click to me, I just really couldn't get into this story. Now, this book is a textbook example of something I have experienced in my own writing career, where you have an off day. Now, Dan Mendoza is a brilliant creator, and his Zombie Tramp series is one of the best comics in the independent market. However, this collaboration, as related to bringing Lady Death to take on Zombie Tramp, really just doesn't work overall. And it doesn't really work because it just doesn't really answer that one critical question that every screenwriter and comic book writer have to answer, and that is, why should we care? I just could not find a reason to really care about this story, even though it featured two really great indie characters, and it had some really great art on the cover from Isaac Bell. I mean, he's somebody I really want to work with as related to an ISIS pinup one day. And Dan Mendoza does a really good job with the art in this comic. However, the story just never really clicks. Now, the story really is impeded as related to everything because it's all basically a dream. And as it's basically a dream, it basically just doesn't really give you that reason to care, nor does it really give you the stakes to really invest you emotionally into it. Now, the whole story is supposed to be about a black celebration where this character of Little Six Cannibal Kitty looks to pull two different characters into a dream world. And it starts with a great opening sequence with Janie basically stalking her prey as the zombie tramp looking for another victim to get a quick meal out of. That's how the book starts, and as it goes on, we get, again, a great introduction to Janie as related to her character and her powers, and we also get another great introduction to Hope, who is Lady Death, and how she uses her powers. However, the entire story sadly just falls completely apart after that whole point of them meeting up and having their showdown, because after they have their showdown, what happens is we get the classic comic book trope of the misunderstanding between these two heroic characters and the character they're supposed to take on. But sadly, when it comes to the Cannibal Kitty, or Lil Six, she's just not a strong enough villain to really compel you to really care about what goes on in this dream of a story that turns into a nightmare for the reader. That's the big problem with Lady Death vs. Zombie Tramp, is that you really don't get any sort of stakes, because the antagonist really isn't really that emotionally invested because it's a dream, and that really makes it where it becomes hard to really care about this story. Now, in comparison, when I was writing my own story where I had the two lead characters in the SJS Direct Universe, Isis and Esteem, coming together in the first Isis series book, Amari's Revenge, I understood that the antagonist is the one that really drives the story as related to conflict, and the villain has to be somebody that you really love to hate, enough to care about to be able to read this story, to get to know the characters and their abilities. So that's why I made Amari a strong antagonist for Isis as related to her being a challenge to Isis as related to the past history that both characters had with each other as related to their personal conflict in Nubia. And with Esteem, Amari basically was a serious threat to her as related to her skills with sorcery and black magic. So I wanted to be able to work on the dynamic so that Amari could be a formidable threat to both characters psychologically and as related to their powers, so that once both characters wound up meeting up to have that big confrontation that's supposed to set up at the end of the first act, you really get emotionally invested enough to care about these characters and care enough about them after they have their initial confrontation that you eventually become extremely excited to see these heroes coming together to take on the overall bad guy. But sadly, when it comes to Lady Death versus Zombie Tramp, yes, you get the flash of two incredibly sexy bad girl heroines, but there's no substance here enough to make you care about the story, to get you excited to the point where you want to really read through the entire over 50 pages of this comic. And I mean, Dan Mendoza again put his heart into this book. I can see it on all of the pages of this comic. He really put his heart and soul into this book. But sometimes you put your heart and soul into a story, and I know this from my own personal experience, that it just doesn't really come together, and it really just doesn't really execute very well. Sometimes it just happens like that. I've had that happen to me I remember the first story I did with Esteem, with the first appearance of Lucifer, The Politics of Hell. It just really didn't come together. I mean, it just didn't really work out. But the same characters, when I put them in a different story, The Temptation of John Haynes, it really just clicked off. And I remember with the first John Haynes story I wrote back in my 20s, The Changing Soul, it just didn't really work very well. I mean, the characters and the concept were there, but I just couldn't get it to execute, to go right. And I remember an ISIS series story I did called Death of a Theta that just really didn't click as related to the story working very well, and it just happens to all of us writers. We get a story that we really like and then we really think it's going to go good, but it just doesn't really work out. And yeah, you can try to put it together, but it just doesn't really work out. Because when I look at Lady Death and Zombie Tramp, again, they're really great characters on their own, but the problem here is that these characters really, the dynamics really don't work well as related to both characters. They just don't really mesh well together. I mean, Zombie Tramp meshed a lot better with Vamp Blade and Dollface when she was a part of the Action Lab universe. I mean, with Vamp Blade, you got that really great chemistry between those two characters, and when they put Dollface in the mix, it just really worked a lot better here. But with Lady Death, I just don't know if Dan had a good handle on the character, or if the character didn't have that much depth, but it just didn't really work as related to chemistry. They really didn't really play well off each other, and that really threw off the dynamics of an already weak premise. So when I was looking at this book, I mean, there was just a lot of issues with this book. And it was really, I was looking forward to this book because I know that Dan Mendoza is very consistent with Zombie Tramp. The writing is absolutely always there on the series. But with this book, it just really wasn't clicking. It really wasn't coming together. And it just didn't really work that well. So I was really disappointed by this book. But I understood what can happen to a creator. I understand as a creator myself what can happen to you. Sometimes you just have a story that's just slightly off, and this is one of those comics that is slightly off. I mean, every comic creator has them, from many Marvel comics. I remember there was an Iron Man story from the David Michelini Bob Layton run where it was talking about spores. That book was kind of off. And there were a couple of Avengers books in my brother's collection that just really weren't there. I mean, the idea could be there, but this one, it just wasn't here. And again, it basically really reminded me of female nature and how some females pull a crap test, because that's what Lil Six looked like she was doing, was pulling a crap test on these two characters to see what she could get away with. And that really wasn't something that I found to be exciting or compelling as a villain. I mean, when it comes to villains, I really want to see some sort of credible threat that really gives me a reason to see these two characters working together. I really want to see a really serious threat, not just, oh, you're in a dream and you have to take over her mind in the dream. It just wasn't enough to really get me excited for this story. But that's just how it is as related to independent comics. Sometimes you have a concept you want to do, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So with this one, again, it's just one of those books that was a disappointment because it was just so mid. And again, I can't really recommend this book, even though it features characters that I like from creators that I like. It just isn't up to snuff as I see it as related to the kind of work that I'm used to from a guy like Dan Mendoza. It just wasn't there for me as a creator. It wasn't just there. Again, the concept just didn't work. Sometimes that's just the way it is. And sadly, that's the way it is for this book. But I can recommend the other works of Dan Mendoza. I mean, every other book he has done has been absolutely fantastic. But this is one I would say to just pass on because it's just not there overall. Now, if you want to pick up my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can find that comic on Lulu.com right now for the same price it was at the 2022 Kickstarter. And I'm hoping to get another SJS Direct Universe comic out with Isis, the Goddess Next Door. And I've got two scripts written. I've got the All That Glitter script. I've got the Beauty Myth script. And I would love to get another Isis story out, but this time I want to do it as a comic, and I can only do that with your help. So if you guys could drop a donation to the PayPal or the Cash App, that would help me in trying to keep raising the funds to be able to get the next Isis comic out. And until then, you can pick up Isis Amari's Revenge to see all the things I was talking about as related to bringing two characters together in a story and allow you to get to know those characters and see how they work together to overcome an antagonist. You can see all of that in the first Isis series book, Isis Amari's Revenge, which is now available on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format, and it's also available at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and Target. And again, you can pick up the last book in the SJS Direct 2024 catalog, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons, on Amazon.com this Friday, and get all three of the books of the SJS Direct 2024 catalog, Isis Dark Incubus, John Haynes Illuminati, and Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. All these books are going to be available after May 24th, and you can get the entire SJS Direct Universe catalog on Amazon.com by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback at e-readers, Isis Dark Incubus. The Goddess Next Door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.